So thank you everyone for joining the masterclass today. And it's all around breaking bad habits. And just as people have shared, there's various reasons why they've turned up today, not only in breaking bad habits, but it might be making better decisions. So I certainly go through an exercise to help you identify what's most important to you, which ultimately defines uh, the direction you want to go in, your purpose and meaning in terms of what it's living out what's most important to you. So I'll certainly be covering that, and I'll be covering the aspect of people pleasing as well as this thing of comparison that we get stuck with. And often we think we are in the wrong direction or going in the wrong direction. And it's simply because we're going in our own direction and it's different to what other people do. And again, it's that comparison that we think we're doing something wrong, but in actual fact, we are heading in the course of what's most purposeful and meaningful to us. And I'll talk about purposeful and meaning life because it's often the loss of purpose and meaning is why we go to addictive behaviors or why we pick up behaviors that are not serving us. So I'll talk to that purpose and meaning and why we constantly seek that in every interaction we endeavor as a human being. So just a little bit about me. I know there's a whole lot of people here that don't know me, a couple that do, but I just wanted to just bring you into the picture as to who I am. So I'm in terms of I'm a father, husband, and I've got two young children, Sophia and Ollie, a wife, Adriana. And I'm also a clinician in nutrition and lifestyle medicine. So I have a degree in nutrition and dietetic medicine, as well as a degree in complementary medicine. I've got my foundation degree in chemical engineering. And as those that joined early probably heard my story about leaving my former career to pursue what was deeply meaningful to me, which is what I'm doing today. And in doing so, I had to let go of my attachment that I thought I'd lose my parents in that process. And the other qualification I have, which I'm sharing a fair bit of work from today, is I'm a facilitator and trained in the Demartini method, which is it is a study in human behavior. So what I'm sharing a lot of today is why we do what we do, why we have these unconscious motives, and why these unconscious motives drive us. And if the unconscious motives are serving us, then that's okay. But if the unconscious motives are not serving us well in terms of the direction we want to go, then we want to bring those unconscious motives to our conscious awareness so that we can unravel them, we can rewire them. And this is what I'm talking about today, is this neuroplasticity. We have the ability to rewire these old habits into habits that we want to stay around and to serve us. So let's get underway with more about what you're going to get out of today's masterclass. So I'm going to do this in a couple of ways. I'm going to share a client story, and in doing so, what really helped that client move them forward. And this is Dave's journey. But I want you to start thinking about, before we talk about Dave's journey and the neuroscience around helping Dave and my process, my step-by-step process to helping people break their old habits and create new ones that serve them better. That's the rewiring of the brain part. So I'm going to step you through that step by step. So take notes and start working. So this is a workshop that enables you to work on the habits that you're wanting to break. And then I'm going to share some next steps in terms of if you want to go about learning more about this information or getting some help in this area. So let's start with your why. So it's really important that you connect with why you're here today. What is it that brings you here? What was it that made you register for today's masterclass? What was that inclination? And I just want you to start thinking through some of these bullet points as to this habit of yours you're wanting to change, or is it a habit that you're wanting to create? If it's a habit you're wanting to change, then you might want to think about what it is in terms of what is it costing you financially, that habit that you're wanting to break, whether it be an alcohol addiction, cocaine addiction, methamphetamines addiction. It could be eating bad food, which is having a massive impact on your health. Or what is it, or what, alternatively, what is the new change that you want to make that you're struggling to make? And so if that's around changing careers, what is that costing you in terms of your mental health? So I know when I was at that fork in terms of career change, I knew that if I stayed with that career, my mental health would deteriorate because I was losing purpose and meaning, and I was losing that drive to get up and want to work. And I love waking up with purpose and meaning every day. And so I thought, I don't want to continue this way if I'm waking up and I don't feel like going to work. And so that decision of not making a decision in terms of moving forward in the direction you want to go is costing you mental health. It's costing you happiness. It's costing you joy. It's costing you days of your life. Because if you think about, if you're doing something that you don't like doing 5 days out of 7, that's a lot of your life. That's probably 80% of your life that's going down the gurgler, and you're only really living 20%. So it's much more fulfilling if you're living the way you want to live every day of your life. And so think about the impact it's having by not making the change or not stepping into the space that you want to go into in terms of the direction you want to go in. Or is it just a habit that you want to break because you know it's holding you back? Such as the story I'm about to share in terms of Dave, it was holding him back financially. It was holding him back in terms of relationships. And he was totally at a point where he thought, what's the point of living? I can't see any purpose in living, any purpose of, living a life. And so not moving forward, sometimes we can get so stuck is that we start questioning the meaning of life. What's the point of living? And so it can get quite dark in terms of that thinking. So I just want you to just take a moment now. And for those that have just joined, we're going through why you're here today. What attracted you to this masterclass? What brought you to this masterclass? And what is it that you want to change? And why? Why is that important to you? What is it costing you if you don't make the change? So just give you some time to think through that. If you want to ask a question, please, just unmute yourself, ask the question. Just be aware, if you unmute yourself, you will be recorded. Otherwise, put it in the chat, and then I can just read out the chat and respond to the chat. Okay, so there's a chat question. I'll just go to that before I move on to the next slide. Okay, so a share in the chat is sitting with negative emotions is a waste of energy and doesn't help me achieve my goals. Absolutely. But sitting with the negative emotions serves in a point that it's making you take action. So being aware of them. So I just want to congratulate you for recognizing the negative emotions, realizing it's a waste of energy and it's not moving you forward, and not moving you in the direction of you're going. So it's serving a purpose. So don't think that the negative emotions don't serve us in any way, because that's an illusion that consumerism will want you to believe, is that if you buy a product, you'll be happy, or if you buy a service, you'll be happy, or if you do this, you'll be happy. At the end of the day, our negative emotions are always going to be there. But what the negative emotions are telling us is that we've got a lopsided perception. And I'm going to talk more details about this lopsided perception when I get into what's happening under the hood, what's happening in your brain. And then you'll better understand how your brain's working and how it's working to actually help you move in the direction you want to move. So thanks for sharing that. So I just want to move on to just sharing Dave's story, just so you've got a bit of background about Dave, because what I'm sharing you is a step-by-step process on how this helped a person that was suicidal and taking drugs to being their best version of themselves today. And this step-by-step process I'm taking you through is a step-by-step process I took Dave through. So it actually works. It works really well if you apply the process. It can turn your life around.
The first time I called Anthony, I was in a psychiatric hospital. This was the third time I was in the hospital in only a span of 2 years. I have suffered with depression most of my teenage to adult life. This led to developing a hard drug addiction to try get away from my problems, which of course only made things worse. I have been to therapy many times and have nothing against it, but for me it just wasn't working. I kept hearing the same thing and was being asked the same questions over again. I did not want sympathy or someone to keep telling me things will get better. I needed to change my life, otherwise I was not going to be able to stay in this world. Anthony's approach was different to anything I have ever experienced. His methods were strong. He made me realize that I can use my past and be thankful for what my experiences have taught me. He told me that my demons were not in fact bringing me down, but making me stronger for what was to come. Anthony was honest from the start and told me this was going to be a long, hard journey. But persistence was the key, and with his tools and advice, I begun my journey. It has been a year since I have been with Anthony, and I have never felt this good in my whole life. That is something I thought I would get to say. I was using drugs every day and constantly thinking about suicide. Now I smile and appreciate life and what it has given me. It is a big transition and was not easy one. But if you are willing to put in the work, Anthony can help you and will not leave your side no matter what. Whenever you need him, he will be there. I know it's tough out there, and I know it's even tougher to get help because you don't want to accept the fact that you need it. But getting help is the bravest thing anyone can do. To all the people reading this, please reach out to Anthony if you are struggling. He will change your life. The first time I called
So that's a bit of background about Dave, and what I'm about to share now is the process that I took Dave through. And so if you get to work and start applying this process, which I'm going to step you through, then you will start to go in the direction that you want to go in. And it's going to really help, certainly the person that shared about the negative emotions and sitting in negative emotions and feeling stuck. And that corresponds to these things that are out of your control and feeling that you've got no control. And so I'm going to talk now about these two levels of the brain that we have. And so it's important you have an understanding of this, because then you know where you're operating out of. And once you are self-aware of where you're operating and making decisions out of, you are able to make better decisions by stepping into the other part of the brain, which enables you to move forward with clarity, with purpose, with meaning. So let me explain these two levels of the brain. So we have a lower level of the brain, which is what we refer to as the animal brain. And so this is what is common with us and the rest of the animal kingdom, is this animal brain. And so the animal brain it has very simple wiring. And I must say, a lot of people in society typically get stuck in this animal brain, because this is where we have violence. This is where we have riots. This is where we have war. This is ultimately the lowest level of the brain that people can operate out of. And you see it pop up over and over time again. It's when people get really emotional and get aggressive and angry, or they, are constantly running away or avoiding people. This is the animal part of the brain that's running us. And it's and how it runs is that it's wired to take us towards something that we desire. In the case of animals, it's prey. So in the case of us, sometimes it can be food, right? Or it could be drugs, or it could be sex, or it could be gambling, or it could be buying shoes, or it could be buying clothes, or it could be buying something that you're constantly buying. It's like it's that addictive behavior, you're constantly going towards it. It brings pleasure. And with a lot of these things, it will bring temporary pleasure, but not lasting pleasure. And I'm pretty sure everyone here is looking for that lasting pleasure, not that temporary fulfillment like Dave was getting from cocaine. And so this moving towards is seeking pleasure, and it's very much the dopamine neurotransmitter at work. It gives us motivation to move towards something. But often we're not moving towards something that we want, or something that we ultimately desire long term, because we're just moving towards something that gives us temporary relief because we're so lost. We don't know what we want. And I'll get back to finding your meaning and purpose. We're actually going to do some of that in the next slide. The other side of the animal brain is it's what, so both are wired for survival. So moving towards prey is to keep you alive, to keep you substantiated, to keep you uh, in a sense, yeah, just going forward, staying alive, eating food, keeping yourself alive. The other one is avoiding predator. So we go towards prey, we want that, something we desire. The other side of that is we want to avoid the predator because it's going to eat us. And so, but we have a stronger desire or a stronger reaction to avoiding the predator, because if we miss the prey for a day, we're not going to die. We generally got enough reserves on us to get us through a day or two. So if we miss the prey for 3 days or 4 days, we will generally survive. And so that's the positive side of emotions, right? It's taking you towards something that's positive, which could be prey, but if you miss out, it's not the end of the world. However, the reason why the negative emotions rule us is because we have a strong negative association with being eaten, right? From the predator. So this is why our negative emotions can really run our lives, is because we're hardwired to avoid the negative to keep us alive. So when you're stuck in a negative emotions, it's very much you're fearing the worst. You're catastrophizing outcomes, or you just have this massive fear of what's ahead. And in the past, that was a tiger. Today, we make it up in our minds. We sort of catastrophize that the world's going to end, or we're going to go into World War III, or something big's going to happen, and we're going to lose our life essentially. And so these two things run us in the animal brain. So the desire to seek something we want, or the desire to avoid something that we don't want, to get away. And that's the predator. And so prey predator runs the animal brain. It runs the animal kingdom. And so the animal kingdom below us is reacting to the environment. It's seeing prey, it goes towards prey. It sees predator, it runs away. But you can probably relate to this as a human experience. You see someone you don't like, you want to avoid them, or you want to get away from them, or you want to fight them, or you want to, you really want to hit them or destroy them, right? So that's the animal brain. And this happens with all violence on the streets. It's the animal brain running the person. And so, but we're humans. We have this evolved part of the brain which sits higher than the animal brain. So the animal brain is our hindbrain. It sits just above the brain stem in the limbic center, in the emotional center. So when we're constantly responding with our emotions, it means we're run by the animal brain. So we're reacting to the outside world based on stimulus from the outside world. We're just reacting to it. And that's what animals do. They just react to the outside world. They see a little scuffle in the bush. That looks like a bit of prey. I'm going to chase that prey. Or they see something big in the bush. That represents predator. I'm running the other way. Very simple thinking. It's very black and white thinking. So when you're thinking black and white, you're stuck in your animal brain. Okay. This other part of the brain we have, the prefrontal cortex, which I'm rubbing my forehead. This is where the prefrontal cortex resides, just behind the forehead. It is our executive function. It is where we see things objectively. We can weigh up the scenarios. We can think rationally. When we're in the animal part of the brain, we're thinking irrationally, right? It's if I don't run fast enough away from this predator, it's going to eat me, right? So it's really, it's extreme thinking. But you got to remember, we have these extreme tendencies to prepare us for the worst outcome. So the reason why we catastrophize negative thinking and we allow negative thinking to build up and to get worse and worse, and we just make a monster out of a small issue, is because we're wired to do that so that you develop such adrenaline and such human force and amazing strength to get away from that predator. But often today we don't encounter the tiger. We don't really have that life-threatening situation, but we make it up in our heads. And this is what negative thinking's doing. It's preparing us for the worst case scenario. So it does serve us, but when we allow it to run out of control, it doesn't serve us anymore. It does help us prepare for the worst possible event so that if it eventuates, we're ready for it. But often that doomsday scenario doesn't come. And so we're constantly preparing for the worst case scenario, but we're living in fear, in essence. We're fearing for our life. We're fearing for the worst case scenario. And so this rest of the webinar is helping you step into your prefrontal cortex to see things objectively. When we see things objectively, we see the advantages, we see the disadvantages, we see the pros, we see the cons, but we see both sides. In it, what happens when we judge, right? So judgment is part of the animal part of the brain. We're judging whether the scenario is a safe scenario for us. Is it a good space to hang out in? And so we have this natural tendency to judge new scenarios, right? That's hardwired within us. But when we don't transcend judgment, we get stuck in the animal brain. So, and what happens with judgment is that we're conscious of one side, but unconscious of the other side. So Eric's starting to bring to his full consciousness this tendency to people please. So it's not really unconscious now, but it is partially unconscious, but he's wanting to break it. So he's starting to get more conscious awareness of it. But in the early days, he wouldn't have had any conscious awareness of it. He would have just kept people pleasing and forever people pleasing. And that was automated. It was unconscious behavior. And that was because initially, way back, maybe back in childhood days, he stacked up, he saw all the conscious, he could see all the conscious benefits of people pleasing, right? And that people pleasing might have been encouraged by others. And he might have got recognition for people pleasing. And so he stacked up all these benefits, conscious benefits of people pleasing. And as I said, we will go towards what's positive or what's beneficial. And so then he's had this lifetime drive towards people pleasing. But what's at the opposite end of people pleasing is the worst nightmare. So I don't know what that is for Eric, but maybe the worst nightmare is rejection, right? I don't know what that could be, the underlying drive behind people pleasing. I'm making this up, so I'm just putting words out there that this could be the underlying motive or human behavior behind the people pleasing tendency. So I'm just working through an example for you. So that the fear of rejection could be driving the tip of the iceberg, which is people pleasing. And so it's really important that we start to understand what is at the root cause of that behavior that we've become conscious of. So yes, we know we are people pleasing, and we all people please in some degree. But is the unconscious motive of coming from the fear of rejection? Maybe, possibly, maybe not. It may be something else. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. So where I'm going with this is that at that early childhood age, the benefits of people pleasing were stacked up. They were very conscious. But what was unconscious at that age was the downsides of people pleasing, right? So they're becoming more conscious to Eric now that people pleasing has both sides. It's got the upside, and then it's also got a downside. And I think what's happening with Eric now is that he's starting to get more conscious awareness that it's got both sides. It's not all good. But at that age, that tender little age, that innocent age, where the conscious mind would have split from the unconscious mind. So the unconscious was unconscious of the negatives of people pleasing, and he became very conscious of the positive. And so that drove a tendency to give more of the wanting the desired behavior, which is, the benefits of people pleasing. But what's happened over time is he's starting to realize the effects, the impact of constant people pleasing is having on his health, his life, and his relationships, probably his finances, everything. And so once we start becoming aware of the unconscious, we get a complete conscious awareness. We're actually operating out of our executive function because we can see both sides of people pleasing. We see the good side, we see the bad side, but we see it as balanced. And so just getting back to the comment before about getting stuck in negative emotions, that's a natural hardwired tendency of us to get stuck in negative emotions because we have a stronger desire to get away from something that's negative because it's more life-threatening. Because if a tiger's there, I could lose my life in an instant. As I said, if I don't get my prey or what I desire, I don't die straight away. It takes many weeks for me to die if I'm not getting my prey, but I can die in an instant from that negative response. And so when we're stuck in negative emotions, we're not seeing the other side. So we're stuck in the animal brain, but in order to rise out of the animal brain and into the prefrontal cortex, we got to start seeing the benefits of what's happened. We got to start looking for it. So because when we're stuck in negative thinking, we're conscious of all the negative aspects of the event, of the people, whatever it might be, of the world, whatever. But we're unconscious of all the positives. So what we need to do is start drawing our attention to the benefits of what's happened, of the other side of the person. All these, we got to start looking for them. And as we start looking for them, we start to bring what's currently unconscious to our conscious awareness. And then we have full consciousness. We're completely mindful. And that's when we're in our executive function. When we're in our executive function, all the emotion dissipates. Our emotions aren't driving us anymore because we're out of the animal brain. The animal brain is to get us towards prey or get us away from predator. When we're fully conscious, we can see both sides. We can make rational decisions, non-emotive decisions. So ultimately, emotive decisions will serve us when we're in a life-threatening situation and we want those emotive decisions. But in today's world, 99% of the decisions we need to make aren't life-threatening. Okay, so we want to step into that full consciousness and that prefrontal cortex, that executive function, by looking for what we're not seeing. So when we're in our animal brain, we're emotional. So if you're feeling emotional, you're in your animal brain. And the reason why you've got emotions is because you've got a lopsided perception. Now, getting back to the first point that was raised when people joined the masterclass, there was a point raised about, I had my little train of thought and now I've just lost it. Lopsided perceptions. So I'm just trying to, I was going to link it to a point that was raised at the start. Oh, that's right. Responding to the outside world. So when we're emotively reacting to the outside world, it's because we've got an imbalanced perception, a lopsided perception. And that lopsided perception is either we're stacking up the negatives or we're stacking up the positives. So often we can have experiences where we only see the positives of the experience. Again, we're stuck in the animal brain because we're only conscious of the positives. We don't have full consciousness. We've got a split consciousness. And what that happens is that we seek more of that we think is just positive. However, over time, we realize that it's got the other side, and the other side eventually affects us and impacts us. But that other side was always there. It was just in the moment of judgment, we created a lopsided perception, and that's what created this mindless behavior, or this emotional behavior behind our actions. So that's what's happening under the hood in terms of the two levels of the brain. Now I'm going to share in terms of how to work with it, how to actually get into that executive function, how to get into the prefrontal cortex, because when we're in the prefrontal cortex, our emotions no longer run us. We run us, or I run myself. I'm no longer responding to the environment emotionally. I can see both sides. I can make a rational decision, and I'm running myself. I'm in control. But the moment we step into the animal brain, I'm not running myself anymore. I'm just responding to cues from the outside world, and the outside world is running me. But we get into the executive function. I have complete control over my emotions, and I'm running myself. There's a couple of questions in the chat, so I'm just going to go through. Okay, so Eric shared that not sure what the underlying driver behind people pleasing is, and potentially it's something that needs to be worked through. Eric's highlighted it could be fear of something, and he's then highlighted it could be the fear of not being liked. And that's really important to us when we're young, right? So when we're young, we realize that we need others in order for us to grow and thrive, right? Because we're not capable of doing everything. And so we do have this reliance and dependence on others, but we do grow out of that. We don't want to get stuck in that. And so as a kid and as a teenager, one of the most important values is a feeling of belonging. And this is what really affects teenagers, is when they don't feel that they belong. They don't feel like they've got a tribe. And that's one of the most strongest human needs as a youth, is to feel like they're a part of a tribe. They're part of a collective. They feel like they belong. And so it's a strong human need. And if that feels like it's missing, we will constantly seek that. We'll constantly chase that. And that could drive people pleasing, because there's a fear of not being liked, a fear of not being part of a tribe, a fear, and that fear is really strong, because if we're not part of a tribe, we don't survive. We're humans. We're a collective species. We work as a pack. we don't survive as an individual. And it's why loneliness causes such great health implications, because we don't survive well being alone. And we're wired to be connected. And that's why we have this neurotransmitter, oxytocin. And that's the feeling of being connected with someone. So, yeah, there's a lot happening under the hood, and often it takes a bit of time to get down to what the underlying driver is behind it all. But we can get there, and we can dissolve that fear. We can dissolve the fear of not being liked. We can dissolve the fear of rejection. We can, once we better understand what that driver is. Because what drives our fantasies is the nightmare. What drives the nightmare is we have a corresponding fantasy of what we want. So nightmares are something we don't want. Fantasies are something we want, but they're lopsided perceptions. They're created in the animal brain, and they're delusional. They're illusions because they're lopsided perceptions of the world. So I just want to share a little bit about human behavior, and this ties into meaning and purpose, because this is the underlying reason why Dave is feeling so well today and on top of the world, because he's connected with who he is and his meaning and purpose, and he's no longer comparing himself to others. And this is why he hasn't resorted back to cocaine. This is why he hasn't had another attempt at suicide. This is why Dave hasn't ended back up in the psychiatric ward, because he's got to the foundation of what was driving his loss of meaning to life, or loss of connection to life. So, what separates us from the rest of the animal kingdom? It's not the size of our brain. It's got nothing to do with that. You know, we've got like dolphins that have I think dolphins, or there's certainly other animals, I think even possums, but they've got a larger brain to body ratio, right? So it's got nothing to do with the size of the brain. What it's got to do with is that we've got this executive function. So the rest of the animal kingdom doesn't have this prefrontal cortex, this executive function. And this executive function defines who we are, right? But often we get lost as to who we are by comparing ourselves to others. We don't know who we should be. We're constantly putting on masks and trying to be other people, and we're just not being ourselves. So we have this desire as a human to seek meaning and purpose in everything we do, every interaction we have. So people are on this masterclass trying to find the meaning and purpose of attending this masterclass. Hopefully you found that, right? That's my job today, is to help you find that meaning and purpose of attending this masterclass. Because when we say yes to something, we're saying no to something else. So I'm hoping you've said yes to the right thing, and you're at the right space in the right time. In terms of what happens is, if we lose this meaning and purpose, we depurpose, and we become animal-like, where we don't have a meaning and purpose. We're just seeking prey and avoiding predator, right? So without meaning and purpose, we resort to animal behavior. And that's what they say, like money. If we create money without meaning, it results in debauchery. You become the Wolf of Wall Street. You don't know what to do with your money. So you spend it on sex, you spend it on drugs, and you're basically devaluing yourself because you're resorting to animal-like behavior. Whereas creating money with meaning results in philanthropy, right? You become very, and so people that have created money with meaning and purpose behind it often have a great intention of what to do with it, and they do great things with their money. Whereas if you create money without meaning, you don't know what to do with it. And this is where people end up just spending it and losing it all, or just devaluing themselves and losing themselves because they have no meaning behind it. And so We seek meaning and purpose in everything we do, in every relationship we have. We're seeking meaning and purpose. And so without that, we go to animal tendencies, and these animal tendencies will generally make us more emotive, more emotively driven, more reactive to the outside world, more that we feel like we're out of control. We have no control. We feel disempowered, and we feel that the outside world is running us, because that's how animals respond. They're just constantly responding to outside stimulus. But we have the ability to step into this prefrontal cortex. And when we're in the prefrontal cortex, that's where we will find ultimate fulfillment. When we're living out of the prefrontal cortex, we can be grateful for whatever happens to us. We can love anyone for whatever they've done to us. We can see both sides of the person. We're not addicted to one side or attached to one side of a person. We see that the person has two sides. They're a human being. We see that every event has two sides. It's not labeled. So when we label things, we're judging it. We say it's good or we say it's bad. That's animal thinking. It's black and white thinking. You're labeling it as just positive, so therefore you just see the positives, or you label it as negative and you're just seeing the negatives. But that's lopsided thinking. That's being driven by your emotions. When we see both sides, the emotions calm down. We can think rationally. We can behave rationally. We can make executive decisions. We can control our life. And so in the executive function is where love and gratitude reside. Love and gratitude reside in the executive function. And so that's ultimately the place that we want to spend more time. Obviously, for various reasons, we'll slip into our animal mind. It's natural to do that. But I want to share with you the ability to step into the prefrontal cortex and how to do that. You're welcome, Eric. Thanks for joining. You can come back to the recording. So what can we do about what we want to change? I think most of you are aware that there's something you want to change, hence why you've made the decision to come today, okay? And so I applaud you for having that conscious awareness of why you're here. But as I said, the why might just be the tip of the iceberg. As was shared at the start, is that I'm very negative. I'm stuck in negativity. The outside world's running me, and I can't find a way out, because that's just the tip of the iceberg. What we need to understand is why you feel that you're just stuck in negativity. What is it? What's driving that? And then we can start unpeeling the onion layer by layer. And so I think what I'd like you to think about now as an activity is what triggers you? What triggers you to react? Because not everything's triggering you to react the way you're feeling. Even if you're stuck in negativity, there'll be moments of where you feel a bit better. You don't feel as negative or overwhelmed with negative emotions. There'll be moments where you don't feel this way. So what tips you in to the negative emotions? What tips you in to feeling that you need something that you don't want to take anymore? What is tipping you into wanting alcohol? What is tipping you into wanting to take drugs? Or what tips you into the state that you need to buy something to make you feel better? Absolutely. Yeah. So someone else has had to leave. And yes, I will share the recording and I will share the copy of the slides. Thanks for attending. And I appreciate your attendance. So yes, I can certainly make sure I share the content with you if you have to leave. Now, this slide is going to help you Okay, someone else has to leave as well. So I apologize. We're getting very close to the hour. And if you have to go, that's okay because it's a recording to watch and I will share the recording with everyone. So this next part of the webinar is around defining who you are. So when you answer these questions, I want you to think about what immediately comes to mind because this is ultimately who you are. This is ultimately what you want to do, but it's not comparing yourself to others. So I want you to go through each of these bullet points and write down 3 responses. So what tasks do you do that bring you energy? What do you do that energizes you? So even if you're stuck in negative emotions, there'll be something that you're doing on a regular basis that you feel energized and you feel that you're not stuck in negative emotions. So what is 3 things that you do that energize you? What bring you energy? What are the things that you do that bring you energy? Write down 3 things, the first 3 things that come to your mind. What are 3 things that you do that you have unbelievable presence, focus, and it holds your attention? And there will be some overlap in your responses. That's that's part of the exercise because what we're finding is the 3 most common things that are meaningful to you. That's what we're looking for. It's the 3 most common things that are meaningful to you. So there will be some overlap as you go through these questions. And if you've got any questions, please put them in the chat or unmute yourself. What are the things that you love to talk about? So what are the topics of conversation that you just love talking about and you become very extroverted? The next point is, what do you love to learn about? Write down 3 things of the 3 things that you'd love to learn about or you are very interested in. What are the long-term goals or the goals that you're constantly setting? What area are they in? And where do you see yourself making progress? So it's got to be congruent. So if you're constantly setting goals in health and you're constantly achieving health goals, then health is meaningful to you. It's important to you. But if you're setting goals in your career that you're not achieving, but you sort of wish you would, hoped you would, then it's not as important to you. You will be achieving in the areas that are most important to you. So where do you set long-term goals that are showing evidence of you're making progress towards, that you can see that you're making incremental progress? What are the things that you do that you're constantly finding time for? So this is important to you. No matter what happens, you will find the time for these activities. What are the 3 things that you'll always find the time for? The next question is, what constantly fills your space? So what do you have within your intimate proximity? So within a meter of you, what's constantly going with you? I'll give an example. So women that value their physical appearance will often have a handbag of things that help keep them physically beautiful throughout the day, whether it be lipstick, makeup, eyelash, it could be sun protection, it could be whatever it is, a breath freshener. It's because they really value physical appearance. That's really important to them. Or it could be they carry around healthy snacks because they value their health and they don't want to be caught out and they can't buy healthy foods. So what is constantly in your perimeter? It could be your phone, but then what you want to ask is, why is your phone important to you? What does your phone facilitate? So it's not that the fact that it is a phone, it might be that your work's important to you and therefore it's a connection with work. Or it might be that your family's important to you. That's why you carry your phone everywhere with you. Or it might be a way in which you listen to podcasts. And, so what podcasts, what do you like learning about? So it's just constantly working out, why is that important to you? And it's what we're really defining is what's most important to you. Where are you most disciplined? So this is where people can rely on you turning up on time, always, no matter what. Where are you most disciplined? So I'm very disciplined around my health. I'll always turn up. I'll always be ahead of time or early to health appointments because it's important to me. Where you turn up late, those things are generally not as important to you. Or where your space is disorganized. Like if you're messy at home, then a tidy home is not important to you. If you're organized in your home life, but disorganized in your work life, it means your home life is more important than your work life. And so what we're defining here is your hierarchy of values, hierarchy of what's most important to you. And the last point here that I want you to write down 3 things for. What are the 3 things that you're constantly internally visualize? So they're visions that you have, but you can see some evidence of it coming true. So for me, I constantly have visions of my health going to another level or improving in the areas I want to improve in. But I can see that manifesting. So it's got to be congruent. It's not stuff that you dream of that you see no manifestation of. So it's not like I constantly dream of the lottery, but you have no evidence of winning the lottery. It's more things that you constantly visualize in your mind that you can see progress in your life. So you might visualize a harmonious family life or great relationships, but you can see evidence of great relationships. You can see evidence of a terrific family life. So what I want you to do now is, with everything you've written down, what's most common? What are the top 3 items that kept popping up? So I'm happy to share mine. So as I said, I kept saying my health is very important to me. My family pops up. So family is very important to me. And the other one that keeps popping up is my vocation or the work I do. That always pops up. So that's my top 3 is the work that I do. I love that. I love my family and I love my health. They're my top 3. Yes, there are other things that are important to me, but that they are my top 3. I thank you for sharing. So, Georgia values connection with friends. So relationships are very important. And in specific, in terms of specific, we want to be very specific. So what I can see here is it's Georgia's connection to her friends. It's not any relationship. It's specifically to her friendship group. And that connection she has a high value on. Georgia also has a high value on her health. So, and financial security. So what is it about financial security, Georgia, that you value? So let's get, I guess, a bit more specific on the financial security side. What does like, so a lot of what people value around money is freedom. So I don't know if it's associated with freedom. Oh, yeah. So being independent. Yeah. So Georgia values independence. So she doesn't want to be a slave to money. She wants to be in control. Like she wants to live the life she wants to live without feeling that she needs to be controlled by money. and dictated by money. She wants to be in control of money. So because Georgia has a high value on financial security and financial independence, she would have no trouble saving, because she will save ahead of spending because it's a high value on her. The only thing that would stop Georgia from saving some money might be her health, because she has a high value on health. So where Georgia's spending her money is obviously with her friends. So she'll spend going out with her friends because that's important to us. So we spend our money according to our values. And so Georgia's going to be constantly saving some or investing some. She's going to be spending money, if any, it's with her friends. And then she's also going to be spending money on her health. So that might be gym memberships. It could be looking after her body. It could be massages. It could be facials. It's going to be associated with health. And then I think another way in which Georgia spends her money is travel. So, because I can see that value coming in here. So she loves being independent, free, traveling, experiencing life. So enjoy leisure time and hobbies. So that's the other avenue where money would be spent. So another way to work out, and I don't think I had it in here in terms of this area, is where do you spend your money? So you will spend your money based on what you value. So Sue shared, nature is really important to me and working towards improving health of the environment. Okay, so the environment sustainability is really important to Sue. So I can imagine Sue reuses, recycles, reduces her landfill contribution. She probably might have solar panels on a roof, or she'll be doing things. She might drive an electric car. So the environment's really important for Sue, and so she'll spend her money on things associated with ensuring that she's living a sustainable lifestyle that supports the environment. And that ties in with nature. So she values nature, hence why the connection of why she would then spend money to make sure nature's conserved, nature is looked after. So if Sue's going to donate money, it would be to a cause that supports natural habitats, supports the environment. That's where she would freely give money. Thank you, everyone, for participating. And I do acknowledge that I've gone over the hour. If you've got time, hang in there. If you need to go, I respect that, and you can come back to the recording. But I've still got information to share. So hang in there if you can. If not, you can come back to the recording. So in terms of identifying your values, one of the first steps I want you to take, and this really helped Dave. This helped Dave change his life. So with Georgia, she is best to, in order to feel that she's in control, is to make sure what she's doing every day is aligned to her values. Every action is aligned to her values. When she's going to feel empty is when she's incongruent with her values. So the best thing Georgia can do is stay congruent with her values and live every day by what's most important to her. And that's spending time with friends, investing time in her health, looking after herself, and taking control of her money, owning, like being the master of her money, not the slave to money. So if Georgia is constantly spending time in these three areas, she will feel fulfilled, really fulfilled. Now, I think what might be a distressing factor for Georgia is the changing economic environment. Okay, so we've obviously had rising inflation, which has driven up interest rates. And so the cost of living has gone significantly up. And I can see how that could be a distressing factor for Georgia because she values financial security and she may see financial security be taken away from her. And so because she has such a high value on it, Georgia fears the loss of financial security. So she's fearing the loss. So as much as she seeks financial security, the other opposing side of that is that she fears the loss. of financial security. And so the way in which Georgia wants to overcome this overwhelm around the economic situation is start to focus on what you can do to improve your financial situation given the circumstances. Okay, so it's okay. This is I can't control interest rates, but what I can control is have I got the best home loan? Have I got the best interest rates? And then what you want to do is then seek to how you can improve your interest rate position, because you can always improve that. The other thing is you want to look at all areas of where you're spending your money, what's not aligned to your values. So anything not aligned to your values, you want to stop that spending. That's the first spending you get rid of. And then you're starting to look at your budget. You're starting to look at where you can save money. And so the benefit of having a economic instability is that it gives you financial empowerment. Your finances will go to the next level because of this situation, because it's making you think twice about where you spend money. And if you want more money coming into your life, then you want to think, how can I be of more service to the world, to the community? How can I use my intellectual property, my superpowers? How can I commercialize them? So Georgia wants to look at commercializing her ability to connect with friends. And so there's something there around her strong ability to connect with friends. So maybe Georgia could look at starting maybe a podcast in terms of how to connect deeply, how to have deep and meaningful relationships. And what Georgia can do is start to build a following. And with that following, she can then, that following will want some support. And maybe Georgia can go into relationship coaching. I don't know, but I'm just throwing some ideas out there as to how you can start to feel like you're moving forward, although the economic world seems like it's collapsing, but it's not. It's just going through a cycle. So I just wanted to get to what Sue's shared. So thank you, Sue, for sharing. You like relaxing with music. Okay, so it gives you focus, makes you creative and energizes you. And that ties probably well in with the nature. I think you connect with nature. You probably connect with nature sounds. You probably like listening to natural sounds. You're welcome, Sue. Thank you for your kind words. Yeah, keep interacting with me. I really appreciate the interaction, because ultimately I'm here for you. I'm here to serve. Okay, so this is the next step in the process. So this is what I've taken Dave through, and this is what has got him to where he is today. And you can do this yourself by just applying this process. So what you want to do, and this is what Eric raised at the start, is he's starting to be more aware of his people-pleasing tendencies. So what he wants to do is start listing all the benefits of people-pleasing, right? So what are the benefits he gets from people-pleasing? And so he could write a list that by pleasing people, I'm giving. I'm giving of myself. So I'm doing something for others. And so it's finding what the benefits are to the behavior now that you're wanting to stop. Because what we need to do is find alternate pathways to getting that benefit. So the next step is, how else could Eric feel like he's giving, but he's not people pleasing? So how else could Eric give, but not people please? And so there's other ways of giving without people pleasing. So it's important to understand your current behavior, the benefits you're getting from it, and then look for alternative ways of getting that benefit. That's the process. And I've got some examples on the next slide. And then what you want to do is now list all the benefits of doing that new behavior and how that better serves your values, what's important to you. So Sue's looking at the alternate behavior and how it serves her and her value around nature and sustainability, and how it serves her value around what was the other one? It was nature, sustainability, spending time in nature. Yeah, so it's a very nature, sustainability, environment, looking after the environment. So what Sue wants to look at is how the new habit will better serve her value around nature, sustainable nature, conserving nature, and then also listing benefits to other values. So in Georgia's case, she wants to list how the new behavior will better serve her in terms of her connection with her friends, in terms of her health, and in terms of financial security. And so, like on the next slide, or I'll share one of my clients I'm working with has a $1,000 to $2,000 a weekend spend on cocaine. So you can imagine if they have a value, and this person has a value on financial freedom or financial wealth creation. So they want to create wealth, and what that wealth gives them is similar to what it gives George, a bit of independence, freedom to make decisions. And you can see how an addiction to cocaine costing them $1,000 to $2,000 a week is deteriorating their financial security. And so we looked at other ways in which they can get the fulfillment that they're getting from cocaine. So what are the benefits they get from cocaine? How else can we get that fulfillment? How does that new way better support what they value? And we keep finding, so what this is doing is creating neural pathways in your brain. So we're looking for those neural pathways, and we keep looking to find more than one way. So with Georgia, we want to find how the new habit serves her and her connection with her friends. We want to find like 20 examples, because we want to get that new neural connection hardwired and really embedded, so that it becomes so attractive that you just want to do the new way. And then how we break down the wiring and connection, or the strong connection to the old habit, is we start to list all the downsides and how the old habit is not serving what's most important to you, how it's not giving you value in the areas that you value, how it's not serving you in all areas of life. And so a cocaine addiction, for example, it destroys relationships, because the person becomes dependent on drugs. And when they're not on the drugs, they're miserable and no one wants to be with them. When they're on the drugs, they're too high and they're manic, right? And no one wants to be with them. And it costs them a lot of money. And so you can see how it's impacting them in all areas of life. It's impacting their relationships. It's impacting their ability to perform at work, because if they're on a low and they're not on cocaine, they don't think as clear. And they're just thinking about the next cocaine shot. So they're not present. They're not thinking about their work. And so what we want to do is keep listing up or how the old habit is not serving them, is not benefiting them. You know, it is, what's the downside of the old habit? And we keep stacking that up, so much so we're dissolving the neural connection to the old way, so much so that they never want to see a bag of cocaine again. They never want to see a cigarette again. They never want to see a bottle of alcohol. So just to walk you through an example. So we're close to the end here. Just to walk you through an example, like, for example, people that are drinking in excess. So I'm not bagging drinking here. What I'm saying is that we want to control our drinking behavior. We don't want our drinking to control us. We don't want us drinking to run our life, so that you're thinking all day, I can't wait to that bottle of alcohol, because that way it's occupying all your capacity to be present, because you're just thinking about that bottle of alcohol. Or you're infatuated about a person. You're infatuated, like you can't be away from that person. You're so infatuated over them. Thank you, Tika. Thank you for your kind words. And yes, I'll send out the recording. Um, so in terms of the bottle of alcohol, this person's consuming too much. It's running their life. So what are the benefits they get from drinking alcohol at the end of the day? It helps them relax. So what's another way in which we could relax? Well, that could be going outside for a walk. Okay? So they're getting outside, they're moving their body, they're exercising. If they value friendship like Georgia does, they could do it with a friend. They could do an evening walk every day with a friend and talk with their friend and develop deeper connections with their friends. And so for Georgia, this is not that Georgia's got a problem with alcohol, but I'm just using her example of her values. So, for example, if Georgia had a problem with alcohol, you could see how now going for a walk with a friend in the evening would much better serve everything she values, because Georgia has a value on health, right? So going for a walk is helping her health. Being outside is helping her health. Not drinking alcohol is helping her health. Doing it with a friend is deepening the connection with a friend. And by not drinking alcohol and going for a walk, she's saving money. So how much money is Georgia saving? Maybe it's $20 a night by not drinking a bottle or 2 bottles of alcohol. And so then what are the other benefits? So Georgia gets a better night's sleep through not drinking. And so she wakes up refreshed. She's performing better at her work. She gets promotions. She gets more income. It's supporting her financial security. So you can see how we can just keep stacking up the benefits of the new behavior, and we can start stacking up the drawbacks of the old behavior, so that we dissolve the hard wiring towards the old behavior and we strongly wire the new behavior. Another thing might be that it tastes good. So, well, let's find another drink that tastes good, that you could still have a drink in the evening, but has no alcohol in it. Maybe it's kombucha. Maybe you find a kombucha that you like that's refreshing. And again, in terms of George's example, kombucha is better for health than alcohol. And kombucha is a lot cheaper than alcohol, and so it supports her financial security. She's more emotionally stable the next day because she's had a better night's sleep. And therefore, her friend connections are even stronger, or her relationships are stronger because she's more emotionally stable. And so you can see how you can start stacking up these benefits of the new behavior and how you can start dissolving the old behavior. It's not rocket science. It's really quite easily. And so in terms of dissolving the old behavior, in the example of drinking alcohol, I've covered a few of these, the poor sleep. The other one is there's lots of calories in alcohol, lots of hidden calories. And so if health's of value to you, then you're not having these surplus calories. You're not going to be gaining weight. You don't have the hangover, for example, and you don't have the expense. You're saving money. So and you can put that money aside to something you value more, which could be a holiday with family or a holiday with friends. Now, I just wanted to share, this is a bonus tip or a bonus slide, and we're right near the end. Okay, so just hang in there. We're nearly finished. And I appreciate your patience in staying with me. So, did you know? Okay, so when our dopamine is low, we seek to balance our dopamine. We seek to bring it up. So dopamine is our pleasure neurotransmitter. It's our motivation neurotransmitter. It's stimulated by, when we have sex, hence why some people can get a sex addiction. It gets stimulated when we have a win. So hence, like, all the anticipation of having a win. So why people get addicted to gambling. Dopamine is goes off the charts when you have cocaine, for example. So when our dopamine's low, we naturally seek ways to lift that dopamine. Now, the best way to have a dopamine boost is to do something that you value. So Georgia, if she's feeling a bit low, Georgia's best to get on the phone and ring a friend and talk to a friend. Georgia's best to get outside and do something healthy because that will lift Georgia's dopamine up. Or Georgia's best to direct some of her income into a savings account that will boost Georgia's dopamine because she's moving towards what's most important to her. And in that movement of towards what's most important to you, you boost dopamine, you balance dopamine. But did you know that too much exposure to phones, to computers, to TV screens, to 5G, to Wi-Fi depletes dopamine. It interferes with dopamine production. LEDs, so artificial lighting. I've got no artificial lighting in my room. I'm looking into a window, so I've got natural lighting. But if I had no natural lighting and had these LEDs shining bright on me, it breaks down dopamine. And this is why when people are indoors working, why they're constantly going for sugar, why they're constantly putting their hand in that lollipop bowl, why they're constantly wanting something sweet, why they're constantly going to the coffee machine, because what they want to do is improve their dopamine, but they're unaware that the artificial lighting is depleting their dopamine. If you're vegan, then dopamine might not be getting manufactured in the quantities you need because you've got low or insufficient amount of protein in your diet. And recreational drugs or pharmaceutical drugs will deplete natural production of neurotransmitters. So if you're on an antidepressant or an anti-anxiolytic, like you have anxiety and you get put on an SSRI, or if you're depression, you get put on an SSRI, what that does is stop your natural production of serotonin. So when you stop the SSRI, the body's not used to producing serotonin and it becomes less effective and less efficient. And so anytime we take a pill to fix an ill, we actually are creating a bigger problem. It's the same thing as if you take melatonin at night to go to sleep, your body gets lazy. It doesn't produce melatonin. And so you become dependent on melatonin. Ultimately, we don't want to become dependent on something that we can make naturally. Because the more we make it naturally, the more we get better at making it naturally, the more efficient we can make it. But the moment we take it from the outside in, our body thinks I don't need to make it. And the body loses its ability to make it. It's use it or lose it concept. So I have a special offer for you attending today, and I'm offering an end of year financial sale, which is a 25% discount on my one-on-one coaching. If you're interested in doing any one-on-one coaching, I grant you a free discovery session. So it comes at no cost. You can check me out a bit more. I will work with you. I'll give you some tips in that free session. And if you decide to work with me, that's great. I'm the right person. If you decide not to work with me, that's great too, because I'm not the right person for you. And so in that discovery session, we're working out if we're a good fit for one another. Because if I'm a good fit for you, you'll get results. If I'm not a good fit, and I'll let you know, I will point you in the direction of someone who can better help you. Because ultimately, I want you to get results. I don't get any satisfaction out of my clients not getting results. So if you're interested in this 25% off my one-on-one coaching, then put your name and number into the chat. You can send that directly to me. You don't need to share that. So just choose Anthony or the host, send it directly to Anthony, the host, and I will call you and we can have this free discovery session and it will cost you nothing. But I will give you some good tips. So there will be a benefit in catching up. And I also have a group coaching option. So if financial challenged at the moment, I also have a much affordable option, which is group coaching. So it's a bit like this environment where we're interacting. Some people prefer group coaching, so you might prefer group coaching. But anyway, they're the two offers, and the special offers. I've got 25% off both my one-on-one and group coaching. And I just want to thank you for participating today, your questions. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you sharing with the group, your responses, and interacting with me. I'm happy to answer any questions now. And yeah, as I said, if you want to know more, please put your phone number and your name in the chat. I'll give you a call and we can have a chat. Otherwise, I wish you all the best. And please apply this formula. It works. If you do the work, you need to do the work. If you put the work in, you will get the outcome. Just like with anything in life, we don't like in life, the things that the achievements we value most are the things we put the most work into. And so if we want what we define our own success, if we want success, then we need to put the work in. And so if you want to succeed in terms of controlling your life and living a life aligned to your values and living a life with meaning and purpose, put the work in. Take the easy option. Don't put the work in. What happens is we just get stuck in this animal world, this animal thinking, this pack thinking, and it runs us. And it's why we see so much, I guess, cruelty or abuse or whatever out there. It's because people are just stuck in the animal mind. So if you really want to step out of that, do the work, you'll be able to step out of that. You'll have more love and gratitude. You'll be more present. You'll have much greater relationships, and you will run you. I think that's the most important thing. It's just being in control of your life and then being very comfortable with who you are. You'll start to define your boundaries. You'll start to own who you are because you know who you are. And so you'll start to say no to things that aren't important to you. So the last tip I'll leave you with is those values that you define, if they're not aligned, if someone asks you to do something not aligned to those values, say no to it. You'll start to define yourself. People will start to understand who you are, and people will start to love you for who you are, as opposed to judging you or not knowing who you are and not knowing who to love. So what I suggest you do is live by your values and just live every day by your values. If it's not aligned to your values or not important to you, say no to it. That way you're just doing high priority things. You stay in the executive function. When you start saying yes to low priority things, you'll go into your animal mind. So say no to the things that aren't important to you, that are low priority, and you'll remain in that executive function more often than not. Obviously, there are times where we'll slip into the animal mind, but the great indication that you're in the animal mind is your emotions. If you're emotional, you have a lopsided perception. And that means you're conscious of one side and unconscious of the other side. In order to get on top of your emotions, you need to look for both sides. You need to get a balanced perspective, not a lopsided perspective. You need to get full consciousness, full mindfulness, full awareness. And we do that by looking for what we're not seeing. So I hope that helps. If you've got any questions, happy to answer them. So I normally use a gratitude jar, but your concept can really, is really useful. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. Thank you, Georgia. I really appreciate, and I look forward to writing my 20 things to gain my new habits. Well done. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, you too have a great long weekend, Georgia. Thanks for your participation. Thanks, Bree. Thanks for joining. Thank you, Sue. Yes, absolutely, Sue. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you, everyone, for your gratitude. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance. And I really look forward to seeing your growth. Well, I probably won't see it, but given we've had this interaction, I will somehow feel it within. So thank you so much. Everyone have a great weekend. Thanks for attending. Yes, please discuss my project with the cardiac rehabilitation team, because I've had great success there. Yeah, so please discuss it with them, because I've actually been able to reverse coronary artery disease through this application of this work. So it can have a profound impact on heart health by embracing this outlook. Happy to, yeah, please bring it up with your cardiac rehabilitation team. I would love to help them in any way I can. So thank you for offering that. Appreciate that.